The most fun and the most interesting, I think, of the teams is Splice.
Okay.
Because, like, I also have talked a lot to Peter Dunn, and I think, like, his take on the game is an interesting one, and there's been, like, a back and forth with us, like, throughout the split.
Hey everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller. I'm sitting here with Kelsey from H2K. How do you feel after finally clutching that playoff spot?
I actually feel so good. Like, most people know me as not an emotive person, but I was so excited. I was so happy when they were winning. It was amazing.
It was a really tough game as well, not gonna lie. I mean, quite a few fights went into Rocket's favor at the end of the day, but you guys, of course, managed to keep it up. Some clutch plays there. So who would you like to thank the most out of that team?
I mean, everyone was playing, like, super well, and the comms were really good. I mean, they were kind of nervous at the start, you could hear, but they managed to pull it together, and, I mean, Selfie was just really confident near the end. I think that, like, helped people a lot, so, yeah, I mean, I'm just really excited for all of these players. I'm especially happy for Promiscu because this is his first time making playoffs after so much, and he's a really big voice, and he's, like, always kind of keeping everyone's morale up, even in difficult games like this. So I'm really happy that he made playoffs.
And, of course, given the fact that Promiscu has received a lot of criticism in the past and has been on teams that haven't had much success, of course, does that feel then extra special for him, I would guess? I
mean, I haven't talked to him as much because it hasn't been much since the winning game, but, like, I'm personally super happy for him, yeah. I think any player starting out on a team that's going to be a bottom team or isn't winning is really difficult for your career, and you kind of have to stick it out, and sometimes you don't get the offers again and stuff like this, and especially for supports, since you can't, like, look at the statistics on a bottom tier team and say, oh, this support is doing 80% of his team's damage or anything like this. So it's really kind of difficult to tough it out, and so I think he's definitely earned it from all of the time that he's been, like, underrated and stuff like this. So.
Okay. Nice to hear that, of course. Now, there was this stereotype of the story going on about the Shook effect coming in, and now Veteran has tried to kind of make sure that it's corrected in the way that now it's just the fact that now you have 5 members that are all on the same page. So I guess we won't see any changes to the roster for Summer Split. There's no expectations for that.
I mean, obviously, it's really difficult to comment on that. Like, everyone has to agree on everything and stuff like this. But right now, the team is working together really well. I would say that the biggest thing for me is that every time there's a problem we encounter, someone almost immediately has a solution or is thinking about a solution. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, this pick is an issue. Well, 6 ideas of how to fix it, like, come out immediately in discussion. I think that makes the environment really, really good. And this particular unit really, really good.
So how did you personally get to work with H2K now?
I've been talking to Veteran off and on for a long time. I also have talked to Richard Wells in the past, and both of them were kind of talking to me in the off season about a job, and then they ended up working together, and so it was, like, a pretty easy fit from there. Yeah, so I've known both of them for a long time. I actually helped Veteran get a job as a journalist at one point, so, you know, it's returning the favor.
Very nice to see. Okay, so since week 6, you've been with a proper team before you worked remotely. Yeah. So how did you experience the players so far, and is it sometimes a bit difficult to work with players and, like, say, okay, hey, I'm the analyst here, I'm trying to make a point here?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the first weeks was just me kind of observing the dynamic and where I could add input in terms of the discussions. I mean, I was already kind of helping Veterans set up discussions and stuff like this, so I was already finding ways to contribute. So now it's just, like, in more casual settings, we talk about stuff in the game and stuff like this, so it's I don't know. I think it was partly because I had talked to pro players before. I'd been, like, this job actually hurts.
Yeah, you've been a journalist as well.
So I was already familiar with, like, the kinds of stuff that they will gravitate to or latch onto in a sense. So it didn't feel, like, super awkward for me to make the transition.
Okay. And do you live in the gaming house yourself, or do you live separately?
I live separately, but I commute there every day, so.
Interesting, because there was the big gaming house discussion, of course, recently with Odoamne putting out the statements and stuff, and multiple players have come out to talk about it and stuff, and we might see some change come franchising, of course.
Yeah.
So playoffs, you're set for it. Which team would you really like to face in a best-of-5 scenario?
So I guess there are teams that would be really fun to play against, and then there are teams that I feel like would be somewhat easy. I mean, it's difficult to say right now because there could be like this really cool tiebreaker scenario with Splice and G2 or Vitality or whatever. But I think for me, like,
fun one would be
the most fun and the most interesting, I think, of the teams is Splice.
Okay.
Because like I also have talked a lot to Peter Dunn, and I think like his take on the game is an interesting one, and there's been like a back and forth with us like throughout the split. So I think that would be really fun. Also, their team is in some ways had a similar start where they couldn't find like early game answers to stuff, and now I think that, I mean, people are really downplaying them. Like the top teams are really downplaying them and saying like, that they look good, but they have all these problems. And you can say that about literally any of the top teams, right? They look good from game to game, but they even Fnatic, like
they lost 4 times minimum.
There are very clear problems. So I don't know. For me, I think Splice would be the most fun and the most interesting to look at and to try to beat. Also, the only team that has a 2-0 over us, right? So I think I feel like G2 are having the most difficulty right now. Okay. In terms of finding like win conditions and consistently executing on them, in terms of the players being on the same page. So it feels like they would be the nicest for us to start against. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. Now, as you've mentioned before, you've worked as a journalist as well. You've basically had multiple roles over the course of your career. You're the co-host of Narrative Wake as well, of course. Do you feel like that the way that esports in general, but specifically the League of Legends scene, has evolved over the past years, we are now kind of seeing a golden age where not just Korea looks really good, but at least maybe we won't be able to challenge them, but in general, EU and NA look really fun and competitive right now?
I don't know if competitive internally translates to competitive internationally, but I think right now it's really fun to watch. Part of that could be the best of one change. I think we have seen a lot of coaches come over and change up the landscape. Like we have people like Grabs going to G2 and people coming with interesting backgrounds like Peter Dunn and Joey Youngbuck moving from G2 to Fnatic, like just changing up the landscape a lot. So I think that allows for ideas to spread more. The players also, like the players for sure, spreading to different teams, like changing up ideas and stuff. I think it really, really helps the European scene. Because like you have Perks and Yankos, they're changing each other's minds on how to see certain things in the game for sure. So and then even players on our team, like you have Shook, who will have a different philosophy on something like this and say that no, we can do this, or like Smitty and Veteran, who've been working together so long, like interacting with these other ideas that we have on the team. Yeah. So I think that this type of spread of ideas is making Europe a little bit more competitive in certain aspects. In terms of whether or not they can contest Korea, I think that there's still a lot of issues, like we mentioned earlier, that every team needs to work on. So yeah.
Okay. But hey, I mean, last year nobody expected Misfits to go 3-2 or 2-3 against SKT, but
I mean, I will never say that it's not going to happen, because I believe that, like, I fundamentally do believe that the players are good enough, and it's just about leveling up all the other stuff. So
interesting. What do you make of SKT's performance right now? If you had any time to watch that game.
Sure, of course. Oh, SKT is so weird, though.
That's a good summary, at least.
I mean, I've always kind of been sort of low on their bottom lane's laning, but they've always kind of had top laners that absorb pressure really well. And I think that they've struggled to find someone who fills that role and also synergizes well with a jungler. And then it's just a very interesting meta where, support jungle synergy matters so much. And I don't necessarily think that that's something that they can really work on with they're constantly like looking for tops and jungles that they need. And I almost kind of feel like they should just commit to a couple players, work on that for a while, and if they don't end up doing well or getting to playoffs this split, then they have something to invest in for next split, Okay. So
Interesting. So it's like the whole changing thing that's actually hurting them to an extent.
Potentially. I mean, obviously, I have no idea what's going on.
But from an outside perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Well, is there anything you would like to say to the H2K fans out there?
Thank you guys for cheering with us, even though a lot of our decisions this split probably seemed weird. But I really think that all of the changes that management and veteran made with the team this split were really necessary and really productive overall. And that hopefully we can surprise you guys even in playoffs this split, let alone summer. So that would be really great. And thanks.
Okay. Well, this was Kelsey from H2K and Darius from the Shotcaller. Hope you had a good day. See you then. Hey everyone, this is Darius from the Shotcaller, and I hope you just enjoyed that interview. This is a generic end card, so make sure to click here for another interview or here for a different interview. And if you want to check out more content, specifically from the NALCS, make sure to visit theshotcaller.net for more interviews and other esports content. Have a good day.